Discover the amazing truth about what happens when you die. Heartwarming revelations await at 100. Grace Matthews smiled out at the sea of faces gathering in her small living room, 100 years of life radiating from her wrinkled hands, shaking with joy rather than age. The aroma of freshly baked pies danced through the air, and the laughter of children filled the spaces between heartfelt stories about love, loss, and resilience. Today, on her final birthday, each breath felt like a gift, each chuckle a spark igniting warmth in her heart. And as neighbors piled in, she couldn't help but think how love formed the very backbone of their close-knit Midwestern town. Suddenly, the door swung open. Silence fell, a cold rush of air spilling in behind Tom, her estranged son. He stood there, breathless and wide-eyed, a canvas of uncertainty painted across his face. The laughter faded into murmurs, and Grace felt her heart stutter. Tom's artistic dreams had taken him miles away, but his return stirred up old wounds, the tension palpable. In the vibrant tapestry of family festivities, his presence was a shadow looming on the edge. With stories flowing like warm molasses, Grace wove a narrative alive with her late husband's sacrifices during the war, their struggles to build a future brick by brick, and the community's unwavering support. Each tale was laced with a truth that acted like glue, binding together the love that had come to define their lives. But as the day pressed on, Tom sat at the fringes, his courage faltering amidst expectations he felt smothering. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the lively chatter swelled again, a neighbor shared a touching story about how Grace had held their hand through tragedy after losing his wife. Her kindness, a beacon in dark times. Grace glowed from this spark of recognition, her heart swelling with pride. Yet, the room shifted once more as Tom, feeling the weight of unresolved hurt, seemed to slink deeper into his silence. Then, the moment some had both anticipated and dreaded arrived. The family heirloom, a weathered watch passed down from her husband, made its way into the spotlight, igniting a fiery debate among Tom and his siblings. It was a symbol of unity, intricately tied to their shared history, now becoming a battleground for unspoken grievances. The room grew heavy with tension, echoing Grace's silent pain as she watched her family fracture. Against the swirl of voices, Grace's own voice rose, trembling but commanding. "Listen, my loves, we've all hurt. But we've also loved fiercely. Life is too precious to hold on to bitterness. We need to confront the truth about who we are and how we feel." Tom tightened, tears glistening in his eyes as he battled the duality of his artist's heart against familial loyalty. Silence enveloped them. The air felt charged, heavy with generations of unresolved issues. Grace silently pleaded for clarity, her mortality a sharp reminder that time was running short. With a soft but firm push, her grandson stepped forward, bringing new life to the heavy air. "What if we chose to embrace our dreams and each other?" he said, a glimmer of hope awakening in the quiet space. In that moment, Grace sensed the precipice of change beneath their feet, one that intertwined their legacies and pasts with futures yet unwritten. Would they reach out to grasp the bridge toward healing, or would inevitability keep them tangled in unresolved hurt? As Grace's heart thudded, the whispers of love, acceptance, and connection lurked in the shadows, waiting to spill forth. The silence stretched, thick with emotions raw and tangled. Grace studied Tom's face, the way he struggled with the weight of unsaid words. A part of her ached for him, understanding the courageous stand it took to confront the ghosts of their past. As her grandson's words hovered in the air like a soft melody, she felt hope flicker across her heart, igniting a spark that hadn't burned in years. "Embrace our dreams, together," Tom echoed quietly, looking down at the worn floorboards. He glanced up, the light catching the unshed tears in his eyes. "Maybe I've held on to my pain for too long," he admitted. The honesty in his voice struck Grace deeply, stirring a long-buried compassion. "Maybe we all have," one of Tom's sisters chimed in, stepping closer. "Mom, I never realized how much we let our misunderstandings build walls between us." Grace felt the walls crack under the weight of shared truth. Laughter had always held the power to heal, but now, it was honesty that ushered in a new light. Her body trembled, a mix of relief and anticipation washing over her. She could almost hear her late husband's laughter echoing around her, urging them to release their burdens. One by one, Tom's siblings began to speak up, sharing their stories of hurt and regret. They talked about the gaps that had grown between them, each word a brush stroke painting a canvas too long left bare. Grace leaned against the arm of the old couch, urging them on with her soft nods and knowing smiles. The watch lay forgotten on the table, its significance fading in the face of open hearts seeking connection. "Telling you how I felt was hard, Mom," Tom confessed, finally shaking off the weight of silence that had clung to him like a heavy fog. "I never wanted to hurt you. I thought you'd be better off without me." Grace's heart broke at those words, realizing how miscommunication had bred resentment. "Oh, sweetheart, you could never be a burden. We are family, the good and the bad. I should have reached for you more," she said, her voice cracking as emotion swelled within her. As they spoke, releasing pent-up grief and fear, Grace could feel her spirit lift, buoyed by the ebb and flow of vulnerability. Laughter punctured the air, cascading off the walls, an echo of the love that had long been overlooked. It became clear to her that this was what she had longed for, a tapestry woven not just from joyful memories but also from the challenges faced together. Outside, the sun began its descent, casting warm hues across the gathering. The golden light spilled through the window, bathing the room in a gentle glow. Grace felt like they were under a shared embrace, a symbol of new beginnings. "We can start anew," she urged softly, each word imbued with the power of healing. But just as hope reached its summit, a crackle of unease slithered into the room. Tom hesitated, glancing away, as if battling something deeper, something still unspoken. The room fell silent again, all eyes on him, the warmth fraying at the edges. "What if we can't change the past?" he finally whispered, his voice shaking. "What if it's too late for us?" Grace's heart sank, a heavy stone lodged within her chest. Was it truly too late? The thought left her breathless as her mind raced through the memories, the what-ifs intertwining like a chaotic dance. Each face reflected her growing sense of urgency. All hope now hinged on one question: could they truly forge a new path forward, or would fear drag them back into familiar darkness? As everyone leaned in, waiting for an answer, Grace's voice broke through the silence once more with a newfound determination. "It's never too late for healing, but we must choose it together." Would they take that leap into a fresh dawn, or would the scars of yesterday prove too deep? The air buzzed with anticipation, the promise of transformation sitting just on the horizon, waiting to unfold. Tom shifted on his feet, the floor creaking beneath him, as the weight of Grace's words hung in the air. A flicker of determination brightened his eyes, but uncertainty tugged at the corners of his brow. Together he whispered, almost to himself, but loud enough for everyone to hear. His sister Laura stepped forward, brushing away the tears that shimmered on her cheeks. "What if we shared those moments that hurt us the most? Maybe that's the key to breaking these chains," she suggested, her voice tinged with hope and suspicion. Grace nodded vigorously, feeling a swell of pride in her children's courage. "Yes. Honesty can be our guide, even when it feels daunting. We owe it to each other." The light from the setting sun cast a soft glow on her face, as if the universe was conspiring to support this gathering of truth. Tom took a deep breath, his heart racing. "Okay, I'll go first," he declared, his voice steadying with newfound confidence. "I remember the night of Dad's accident. I felt so abandoned. None of us spoke about it, and I didn't understand how to deal with it. As he spoke, the memories flooded back like a movie playing in fast forward: the shock, the denial, the overwhelming pain in the aftermath. Grace's chest tightened. She had always tried to shield her children from the deep sorrow that had enveloped their lives since that day. "I thought being strong meant hiding my feelings," Tom continued, still focused on the past, "but it only made it worse." Laura exchanged glances with their brother, Michael, who began to speak. "I felt the same. I was angry. I thought all of us were moving on without acknowledging what happened. It felt like I was the only one carrying that burden." Each confession peeled away layers of silence that had cloaked their conversations for too long. Grace could practically feel the atmosphere shift, liberating the raw emotions they had each bottled up. A connection, fragile yet potent, began to stitch the gaps in their family. "It's okay to feel," Grace finally added, her voice trembling with emotion. "You all lost your father too, and simply moving forward didn't mean leaving him behind." She could hear her husband's laughter in her mind, urging them to remember the bright moments as well, the joy and love amidst the darkness. A heavy silence lingered as the siblings nodded, each processing their feelings. It was strange how they had lived in parallel, experiencing the same grief yet feeling so isolated. "What do we do now?" Michael asked, facing the group with vulnerability in his voice. "How do we make sure we don't lose each other again?" Grace's heart swelled as she contemplated their next steps. "We create new memories. Let us talk more, share our dreams, our fears. Make room for laughter and healing. We still have time," she said, rolling the words over her tongue like a sweet promise. Tom wiped his eyes and a smile broke through, fragile yet genuine. "So, what if we start with a family game night? Remember how we used to have fun together? We can laugh again, can't we?" "Yes. Game nights." Laura cheered, the collective energy shifting toward excitement. "And Mom can bring her famous cookies." It was small, a baby step, but as laughter erupted, Grace realized something wonderful was unfolding. Hope, like the golden light of the sunset outside, washed over them. Yet as they were caught in the glow of possibility, a sudden knock on the door shattered the moment, sending ripples of unexpected tension through the room. Their eyes darted toward the entrance, a collective breath held tight between them. Who could it be, intruding on this blossoming moment of healing? As Tom slowly opened the door, the uncertainty in the air felt electric. Who stood beyond that threshold could change everything. Tom opened the door slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. The familiar creak of the hinges felt ominous in the sudden silence that enveloped the room. When the door finally swung wide, the face that greeted him was one he hadn't expected. "Mark," he breathed, recognition dawning mixed with disbelief. Their father's old friend stood there, weathered but familiar. Mark's eyes sparkled with an intensity that both unsettled and intrigued Tom. "Can I come in?" Mark asked, his voice holding a weight that demanded attention. Without waiting for a response, he strode into their living room, casting his gaze over the family gathered there. The laughter that had filled the air moments ago faded into cautious whispers. "Mom?" Tom glanced back at Grace, uncertainty etching lines across his face. She stood frozen, her eyes wide, as if the mere sight of this man had pulled her back in time. "Mark, what are you doing here?" She finally managed, her voice steadying despite the rush of memories flooding her mind. It was unexpected and jarring, a new chapter about to unfold before them. "I came to talk to you all," he began, his tone serious. "About your father. There's something you need to know." Panic laced through the air. The promise of family game nights and shared laughter felt fragile, potentially shattered by the conversation looming. Mark perceived their tension, his face softening. "Please, sit down. This will be a while." They settled into their places, a circle of uncertain family members. Mark took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts. "I owe it to your father and to you to be honest. I didn't just lose a friend that night, I lost a secret that I carried myself, and it's time you all knew. The family exchanged glances, confusion swirling among them. Tom leaned forward, intent on understanding as he felt a mixture of anxiety and intrigue. What kind of secret? There was an accident, Mark explained, his voice lowering as if guarding the weight of the truth. But it wasn't what everyone thought. Your father was working on something that involved people who weren't just in this town. He paused, gauging their reactions. He was researching an important project, something tied to a larger organization. Laura frowned, raising an eyebrow. What do you mean? What does this have to do with his death? Mark struggled, eyes filled with a glimmer of desperation. I believe your father's death was an accident. But the circumstances around it, there are questions that need to be answered. The air in the room grew denser with tension. Grace felt the familiar ache of loss, but now mixed with fear. You're saying he was involved in something dangerous? Tom's mind raced. Secrets hidden beneath their grief were beginning to surface, but how deep did this rabbit hole go? Why now? Why tell us this after all this time? Because, Mark replied, leaning closer, I think you're ready to know, and because I may have found some clues. Each word hung heavy with implications, a revelation waiting to spill over. The laughter and warmth of the moment were eclipsed by uncertainty and a hunger for answers that felt urgent. What kind of clues? Michael asked, his voice a whisper as he leaned in, the weight of this new reality settling in. Mark met each of their eyes one by one. Ones that might help you finally feel free of the chains of this grief. As his words sunk in, the room pulsated with a new kind of energy, a blend of fear and excitement. What did it mean for their family? What would they uncover together? Before anyone could respond, the door swung shut behind them, echoing a solemn promise. The journey to understanding and healing was just beginning, but the shadows of their past were finally about to be illuminated. Tom's breath caught in his throat. Clues. He could barely process the word as it reverberated through his mind, rattling an entire cage of buried emotions. Mark's serious gaze locked onto Tom's, rooting him in place. There was an urgency in the air, a pulse of possibility in stark contrast to the creeping dread that hung over the room. Clues? Laura echoed, a tremor in her voice. The mixture of hope and fear danced in her eyes, reflecting the gnawing curiosity of everyone present. What do you mean? How can we trust what you say? Mark sighed, his brow furrowing as if recalling a painful memory. I wouldn't come here if I didn't believe it was important. Your father was involved with a team researching something groundbreaking. I didn't fully understand it myself until things went wrong. But pieces of that story linger in the wind. I have letters, documents, things that might shed light on what really happened to him. Each word felt like a key, unlocking their shared past and daunting future. Grace's fingers twitched against the fabric of her jeans, her heart aching with a mixture of betrayal and hope. And you waited until now to tell us? The question shot through the air with a sting. Mark's shoulders dropped as he flinched slightly. I couldn't. I was scared, Grace. Scared of what it might mean if you found out. But now, after all this time, I know hiding it won't bring him back. You deserve the truth. What truth? Tom asked, his voice raw with emotion. What specifically did he discover that was so dangerous? Mark pressed his lips into a thin line, contemplating the distance between his memories and their painful present. I can't give you everything right now. But I think your father's work was connected to something bigger. Some organization that didn't play by the rules we expect. Those who stand to gain from keeping certain truths hidden. Tom eyed his brothers and mother, the weight of their collective grief felt heavier suddenly, a familial bond now laced with uncertainty. If we dive into this, if we try to uncover it, what are we getting ourselves into? Laura spoke softly, trembling slightly. What if we stir something we can't control? What if it leads to more pain? Mark seemed to catch that fear, nodding slowly. I understand. It's a risk. But imagine if we could finally understand what really happened. It could bring you peace. It could free you from living in the shadows of his loss. Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating as they exchanged fearful glances. The memories of their father tipped into their minds, his laughter, his warmth, and the conflicting emotions simmered just beneath the surface. Tom's heart raced. Did he have the courage to step into uncertainty? To confront the hidden fragments of his father's life, especially if it meant uncovering depths of danger? What if we find more than just answers? He asked, throwing caution to the wind. What if we unravel something dangerous? Mark's eyes fixed on Tom, serious but piercing with determination. Then we face it together. You're not alone in this. As hope flickered in the gathering gloom, they all felt an unspoken understanding washing over them. It was time to step forward, to uncover what they'd hidden from for far too long. The journey ahead could bring healing, or it could shatter them further, but the need for answers was stronger than their fears. Okay, Tom said finally, his voice steady now. Let us start with what you have. What's our next step? At that moment, a distant rumble of thunder echoed outside, as if the world knew their decision. Whatever awaited them was shrouded in darkness. But with their resolve ignited, they were ready to bring the light to the shadows. As they prepared to plunge into the secrets of the past, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the edge of something much bigger than themselves. What awaited in the depths that Mark had mentioned? And would they be prepared for what they would discover? The sound of thunder rattled the windows, resonating with an unsettling energy as the four of them gathered closer, the weight of their decision hanging in the air. Mark reached into his worn messenger bag and pulled out a bundle of aged letters, their edges frayed and discolored from time. He placed them carefully on the table. Here, he said, his voice steady despite the obvious tension in the room. These are some of the letters your father wrote to a colleague. They could help us understand what he was involved in. Tom's heart raced as he reached for them. The sight of his father's handwriting felt like a portal into a life he barely knew. Each swoop of the pen, every curve of the letters, breathed life into memories that had long floated in mist-faded photographs hidden in boxes and stories told in hushed whispers. With trembling hands, he pulled one letter from the stack. The paper was thick, the ink rich. He began to read, his eyes scanning the words with a familiar urgency. Dear Michael, it's getting harder to ignore the patterns, someone seems to be watching. His voice wavered as he paused, glancing up at Mark. What does this mean? Who was watching my father? Mark's face tightened. That's what we need to find out. Your father was dealing with something dangerous, and he started to notice things weren't right. There's a chance that someone didn't want him digging deeper. The implications hit Tom like a punch to the gut. The father he idolized had become a man burdened by shadows. But was he brave, or reckless? Mark motioned to the rest of the letters, his expression urging them to take this seriously. Grace leaned in closer, her brows furrowing. Was he uncovering something that could help people? Or just placing a target on his back? Mark took a breath, looking down at the table, as if searching for his own answers in the surface grain. I can't say for sure. That might be what you find out as you read through these. But his fear, it feels palpable even across the pages. As Tom continued reading, his mind raced. A mix of sadness and bitterness bubbled within him. Each line dripped with his father's desperation, yet also with hope that they could expose injustices. But the looming danger gnawed at him, twisting the urge to dig deeper into a knot of worry. Laura's voice broke through his thoughts. Are you okay? He looked up, eyes glistening with unshed tears. No, he admitted. I'm afraid. But I can't ignore this. A flash of lightning illuminated the room briefly, flickering shadows darting along the walls. In that moment, their resolve seemed to solidify further. This was about more than just discovering the truth of their father's past, it was about reclaiming the narrative of their own lives, stepping out from under the weight of loss and fear. "We've got to find out who was behind this," he stated firmly, the resonance of his words echoing in the stillness of the room. The look of determination in his siblings' eyes told him they felt the same. Mark nodded gravely. "We can start piecing it together tonight. There's a meeting place I know where some of his contacts might have gathered. If we go, we might hear something more about what he was tangled up in." Tom swallowed hard, his heart pounding. What if they want to talk? What if it puts us on their radar? "Then we'll be careful," Mark responded. "We have to be smart about this. But I believe this is the only way to find the answers you all deserve." As the storm raged outside, their path ahead remained uncertain, cloaked in dark possibilities. But the fire of determination ignited within them felt like the only clear light in the tempest. They were about to cross a threshold into a world where secrets lurked, threatening to swallow them whole. Tom glanced at his family, their expressions etched with courage and fear, and realized there was no turning back. "Let us do this," he said quietly, the words sealing their fate. But as they prepared to leave, a cold breeze snaked through the room, carrying a whisper that prickled Tom's skin. He felt it a warning, or maybe just the echo of a past waiting to ensnare them in its grip. What unseen forces awaited them on this new journey? Would the discoveries bring the closure they craved, or would it lead them further into a darkness they couldn't escape? The rain intensified as they stepped out into the night, the air thick with electricity. Tom's heart pounded, each raindrop feeling like a signal from the universe, urging him onward. He clutched the precious letters, unsure if he was holding a lifeline or a curse. Mark led the way, navigating through slippery streets, his familiarity with the terrain evident. Laura and Grace trailed closely behind, their expressions a mix of determination and fear. Tom could sense the tension humming between them, a silent acknowledgement of their shared stakes. They arrived at a rundown bar tucked between towering buildings, dimly lit and shrouded in shadows. The sign flickered, casting an eerie glow on the pavement. This was a place where secrets were exchanged and truths could either be unearthed or buried deeper. Mark pushed the door open, allowing the scent of smoke and old wood to wash over them. The low murmur of conversation mixed with the clinking of glasses as they stepped inside. Tom immediately scanned the room, registering the faces in dim light, none familiar, but all potentially dangerous. "Keep your voices down," Mark whispered, guiding them toward a secluded table in the corner. "We don't know who's listening." Tom nodded, trying to focus. He felt the weight of the letters in his hands, the burden of his father's words pulling him into a past that felt more urgent by the second. He almost dropped the papers as the bartender approached, wiping his hands on a stained rag. "Can I get you something?" the bartender asked, eyeing them with mild curiosity. "Just water for now," Mark replied, his tone flat. "We're waiting for someone." As they settled into their seats, Tom felt the adrenaline pulse through him. "How long do we wait?" he asked, needing some sense of control in this chaotic moment. Mark glanced at his watch. "Not long, I hope. I sent a message to Jean. If she's still in town, she'll show." Tom's stomach nodded. What if she doesn't come? What if we're just wasting our time here? Grace placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We need to trust this. We're doing this for Dad." The sight of his sister's unwavering faith fueled Tom's determination. He glanced around the bar again, the shadows seemed to deepen, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Minutes trickled by painfully. Tom tried to keep his mind still, but his thoughts spiraled. He thought of his father's words, those warnings etched in ink. He shuddered at the thought of their father's courage back then, facing fears they were barely beginning to understand. Then, a figure entered the bar, her silhouette illuminated briefly by the flickering light. She moved with purpose, eyes scanning the room. It was Jean, an old contact of his father's, someone who might hold fragments of the truth. As she approached, Tom's heart raced. "This is it," he muttered under his breath. The moment felt monumental, as if they were standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. Jean's eyes locked onto theirs, her expression a mix of recognition and caution. "You're here for answers," she stated, her voice steady yet guarded. "Your father wasn't just investigating, he got involved in something much bigger." The weight of her words landed heavily in Tom's chest, a mixture of dread and curiosity swirling within him. "What do you mean?" he pressed, desperation coloring his voice. But before she could elaborate, the bar door swung open again, letting in a blast of cold air. Tom turned, chills creeping down his spine as a group of men entered, their faces hidden beneath hoods. The atmosphere shifted, tension coiling like a spring. "They're here," Mark hissed, his voice trembling with urgency. Tom's pulse quickened as he glanced from the approaching figures to Jean, who looked ready to bolt. "What do we do?" he whispered, panic rising. She fixed her gaze on Tom. "We don't have much time. What secrets would the evening reveal, and at what cost?" The stakes were rising, and so was the danger. Would they uncover the truth, or would shadows from the past consume them entirely? Jean's eyes darted toward the exit, and Tom could almost see her mind racing. He could feel the urgency in the air, thick and oppressing. "Stay close," Mark said, his voice low and commanding. The group huddled together, the table feeling too small for the tension that spiraled around them. Tom's heart hammered in his chest, a relentless rhythm that underscored the moment. "Do you think they're after us?" Laura asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Fear seeped through her words, and Tom wished he could reassure her, but his own mind was ticking with worry. Jean leaned in, her expression serious. "Your father knew things. Things that put him in danger. If those men are involved, then they might know you're here." Tom felt a chill run through him. "What did he get mixed up in?" he asked, voice trembling. The letters felt heavier in his grip, now more than just words. They were a burden, a warning. "Before he disappeared, he discovered a network," Jean explained. "They deal in secrets, dirty deals, and information that could destroy lives." With each word, the weight on Tom's shoulders deepened. Memories of his father's stories flashed in his mind, the cautionary tales, the way he always glanced over his shoulder, as if haunted by ghosts only he could see. The hooded figures congregated closer to the bar. Tom recognized one, a cruel smirk painted on his face. He had seen that expression before. Tom felt the blood drain from his face. Panic threatened to overwhelm him. "Can they see us?" Grace's voice shook. She gripped Tom's arm tightly. Her fear was palpable, and it mirrored his own. "They're scanning for anything out of the ordinary," Jean replied, her eyes narrowing. "If they notice us together, it won't end well." Mark took a deep breath and turned to the group. "We need to leave. Now." There was no hesitation, just a clear urgency ringing in his tone. "What about Jean?" Tom protested, futilely glancing at her. He had just gotten here, the pieces of the puzzle he needed so close, yet so far away. Jean placed a steadying hand on Tom's shoulder. "I'll be okay. But you need to go. Find the truth." Her voice softened slightly, revealing a glimmer of hope beneath the urgency. "You're stronger than you think." Before he could respond, the men shifted, their eyes narrowing as they seemed to take an interest in Tom's group. The moment stretched, heartbeats and breaths mingling with the background noise of the bar. Mark stood, tension radiating from him. "Let us go." With one final glance back at Jean, Tom felt a weight in his chest. How could they leave her behind like this? Each step toward the door weighed heavily on him, but he pushed on, propelled by the urgency of the moment. As they stepped outside, the rain poured down in sheets. The cool droplets on his skin felt grounding, but the looming threat from the bar suffocated his thoughts. They turned to run down the slick alley, the shadows dancing around them. "Where do we go now?" Laura asked, breathless. "Follow me," Mark replied, leading them deeper into the maze of the city. They needed a plan, a way to uncover the truth behind their father's warning, but first, they needed to get away from danger. As they rounded a corner, Tom's mind was swirling with the pieces they still needed to fit together. "Will any of us be safe?" he whispered. But no one had an answer. The weight of uncertainty lingered as the rain fell, drowning out their thoughts and fears. What were they about to uncover that could change everything? As they pushed forward, the night felt darker than before, the shadows creeping in with unyielding resolve. Would they find the answers before it was too late? They ducked into an empty storefront, the glass door swinging shut behind them with a soft click. The flickering neon lights outside cast an eerie glow, illuminating their faces in ghostly blues and pinks. Tom pressed his back against the wall, feeling the cold surface seep through his clothes. "We can't stay here long," Mark said, scanning the empty aisles cluttered with broken furniture and forgotten memories. "If they're looking for us, we have to keep moving." Tom's heart raced at the thought. He felt trapped, that familiar sensation of panic rising in his chest. "What do we do?" he asked, trying to catch his breath. Mark turned to the group, his eyes shining with determination. "We need to figure out what your father uncovered. Jean said he was onto something big. We might find a clue in his things." Laura nodded, pushing her hair away from her damp face. "The letters, you still have them, right?" Tom fished the crumpled papers from his pocket, carefully unfolding the delicate, yellowed pages. As he read the words again, they felt more like a lifeline than before, a connection to his father, a chance to understand his past. "The last letter mentions a meeting at Oakridge Park," he said, his voice full of surprise. "It could be where he was going when he disappeared." "Then that's our next stop," Mark decided, clenching his fist. "We need answers, and we can't let fear hold us back." The thought made Tom's blood run cold. What if they were walking into a trap? But deep down, the need to uncover the truth outweighed his fear. His father had spent years carrying the weight of secrets. It was time to let that burden go. "Let us move," Mark urged, leading them back out into the rain. The city streets transformed into a slick, reflective surface, blurring the lights and sounds of the world around them. Each step felt heavier than the last as they navigated through the darkness. As they approached Oakridge Park, Tom's mind raced. He anticipated what they might find there, the ghosts of his father's past rising to unveil the truth he had sought for so long. Would they walk away with answers, or would they succumb to the same fate as him? A shiver ran down his spine as they entered the park, the trees looming tall like silent sentinels. The wind rustled the leaves, whispering secrets that seemed to taunt them. "What if we're not alone?" Grace asked softly, her voice trembling with apprehension. "We can't think like that," Mark insisted, though Tom sensed a hint of uncertainty in his tone. They reached a clearing, and Tom halted, feeling the electric tension in the air. In the dim light, he noticed a small wooden bench, the worn surface stained with age. The spot seemed ordinary, yet it reverberated with untold stories. "Is this the place?" Laura asked, looking around nervously. Tom stepped forward, his breath hitching in his throat. As he approached the bench, he spotted something glinting beneath it. Suddenly, all doubts faded. This could be the breakthrough they desperately needed. "Wait here," he told the others, kneeling to retrieve it. His heart pounded as he pulled a tiny metal box from the dirt, the rusted hinges protesting against his movements. Could this be the key to unlocking his father's secret? With shaking hands, he opened it, a gasp escaping his lips. Inside lay photographs, documents, and a single note that could unravel the mystery that tied them all together. But just as he began to read, an ominous rustling echoed through the park. They were not alone. What or who awaited them in the shadows, and would the truth be worth the fight? Tom's heart raced as he glanced around, every instinct screaming that danger was near. He clutched the tiny metal box, its weight a strange mix of thrill and dread. The rustling sound grew louder, branches snapping like bones beneath heavy boots. They were being hunted. "Get behind me," Mark ordered, instinctively positioning himself in front of the others. But Tom wasn't about to let fear dictate his actions. He needed answers, and those answers were within his grasp. He ignored the dampness of the earth beneath him, focusing instead on the fragile pieces of paper spilling from the box. "What's in there, Tom?" Laura whispered, straining to catch a glimpse. "Photos, notes," he murmured, his eyes darting between the words and the rustling branches. "Selling secrets. It looks like they were trying to publish something or expose someone." Suddenly, from the darkness emerged two shadowy figures. Hooded and menacing, they stepped into the dim park light with an air of authority that sent terror shivering through Tom and the group. "What do you think you're doing here?" One of them sneered, stepping closer, revealing a scarred face and a hardened stare. Tom's mind raced. There was no way to run without abandoning the precious documents that hinted at his father's truth. We know what he was mixed up in," Tom said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "He was trying to uncover something important." The men exchanged glances, a flicker of interest igniting between them, as if Tom had just thrown a match into gasoline. "You really shouldn't be poking your nose where it doesn't belong," the second man said, stepping into the light, arms crossed. "It's a dangerous game. Your father learned that the hard way." Tom's breath caught. The men knew his father's fate. He felt the thorny tendrils of fear grasp at his throat, tightening just as he began to diffuse the energy that threatened to spiral out of control. He had to outsmart them. "Tell us what you know," Tom challenged, feeling courage swell within him. "If you want this to stay quiet, help us. Or we'll take this to the police." Mark shot Tom a warning look, but it was too late. The atmosphere had shifted, he could feel it. The two men exchanged guarded glances, and for a heartbeat, Tom thought they might withdraw, but their amusement was evident as if they enjoyed the thrill of the chase. "Is that a threat?" The first man smirked. "How naive. Your father had something valuable and it cost him. You think just because he was family, we won to deal with you too? Come on." Something stirred in Grace, and with surprising strength, she stepped forward. "You think he's afraid? You think this is a game? People like you ruin lives." Her voice rang out with fierce emotion, echoing against the trees. Tom's heart leapt. "Mom, enough." The second man barked, taking a threatening step forward. "You don't know what you're getting into." "Yes, we do," Mark said, his voice steady like a curtain rising on a new act. "Your game is over." A wild urgency bubbled within Tom. He couldn't let fear win. "We have your name, your faces. If anything happens to us, this will go straight to the authorities. People are waiting to expose you. We'll find the people who can help us." The men paused, their confidence wavering. Was it fear he saw in their eyes or annoyance? "You think you're clever," the first man spat, his bravado dimming. "But it's all just chess pieces moving, kid. You have one shot to vanish before you become a target. Take it." Tom felt the air shift. "We will expose you," he declared with fierce determination, eyeing the photographs and letters scattered around him. They could not retreat. Truth had a way of cutting through darkness. They were not just fighting for answers about their father, they were fighting for their lives. With a final glance at the faces of the men, the urgency of the moment igniting his adrenaline, Tom grabbed his siblings by the arms. "We need to go. Now." As they sprinted through the park, laughter chased them in a mocking echo from the shadows. The rain dripped down heavily, the drops mingling with the sweat of fear and anticipation. Every step they took was precarious, pushing them closer to a new understanding of their past. They started this journey looking for closure, yet it had transformed into a fight for survival. Each moment felt like walking on the edge of a precipice above them, light, hope, below, darkness, danger. With every heartbeat, they informed each other with words unspoken. They pulled strength from their family bond, propelling forward into whatever awaited them. This adventure was just beginning. They were ready to reveal the truth, shine a light on the shadows, even if it meant confronting the secrets that loomed large. They were a family, undaunted by circumstances, united against shadows, hoping to unveil the truth and maybe, in doing so, reclaim their lives. As the last echoes of the park faded behind them, Tom clutched the steel of determination that filled the space between their racing hearts. They would find the answers, confront the danger, and finally confront what had once shadowed their family. This was their moment to rise. Now, they had no choice but to embrace the chaos ahead. The truth awaited. And then it happened. A single flash of lightning illuminated the horizon, a brief glimpse into the storm that waited, fierce and alive. Would they face it? Yes, together. They were ready. Their journey had only just begun. Don't wait a second longer. If you found inspiration in this story of family healing and courage, you need to subscribe now for more exclusive tales that will touch your heart. Leave a like to help our community grow and comment below with your thoughts and feelings about Tom's incredible journey. And rush to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and the power of truth. This is the moment to show your support. Don't let it slip away.